Today we're playing Giants Boulder in the Epic Storm along with 4 copies of Urza Saga. This is the new way. Let's go check it out. In front of you is the Epic Storm version 20.0, and it's what we'll be playing today as a donation deck from Jonathan Savarese. Jonathan, thank you. Jonathan recently became a member of our Stormtrooper tier for $30. With that, you get access to where we actually work on decks together. You get access to every sideboard that I've ever made. You get access to the data collection project, which I will show you later on in the video at the end of this deck tech. And with all of this, there's also 50% off donation decks, and Jonathan cashed that in. So today we're playing the latest and greatest list, but I wanted to guide you to how we got here. So if you're not interested in that, you can go ahead and skip to match number 1. You might hurt my feelings a little bit, but not the end of the world. I'd really appreciate it if you stuck around and hear how we got from Grixis Barrogoyf to 5-color Giants Boulder. So this is what we'll be playing today, and we'll come back to this towards the end, but I'd like to jump to the first non-Barrogoyf list, at least Grixis Barrogoyf. You'll notice it's still in the sideboard of this 4-color white list. Well, how did we even get here? Because that's a pretty big jump from 19.5. This is 19.7. So 19.6 was a list that I personally never played, but other people in the Stormtrooper section did, and I watched them play because we have nightly streams where there's 10 to 15 of us in a voice call all playing together. And in those group streams, I saw the flaws in 19.5 and 19.6, and I sort of had an idea, and it was only partially mine. You might recognize the name Matthew Story, who submits a lot of donation decks. They had this idea of playing 4 copies of Giants Boulder over Brainstorm because it enables Mox Opal to be more consistent in a Grixis list. And no one liked that idea. We were just like, well, if we're already Grixis, we have damn near perfect mana. Giants Boulder isn't really accomplishing anything. And I thought, well, what if your mana is not perfect? Okay, well then Giants Boulder has a role. And I was like, what if we go 5 colors and we get everything we've ever wanted to play and tie the room together with Giants Boulder without having to have a terrible mana base? And the idea was that you could have Silence, you could have Haywire Might, in theory you could even have Beseju Who Endures, you would get everything. And someone said, and I believe it was Alex McKinley of the Epic Storm team, well, what if instead of being just 5-color all fetchables, what if we go back to Urza Saga? Because the Epic Storm has gone on again, off again, like Ross and Rachel from Friends with Urza Saga the last few years. The issue with Urza Saga in 5-color or even 4-color, the Epic Storm, prior to Giants Boulder, was that you have to play 13 or even 14 lands in order to support Urza Saga in your Echo of Aeons deck. This causes more and more Echo of Aeons to fizzle, and it never quite works. So with Giants Boulder, you get to play 12 lands. I don't know if you can actually see the number up here, but the number is 12. You could play 12 lands in 4 copies of Urza Saga. Sometimes we would play 3 with 13 lands, just trying to get our colors to work, which was a problem. But now you get 4 Urza Saga and 12 lands due to the Giants Boulder. And I was like, okay, I think we're cooking. So we said, okay, well, if we're going to play Giants Boulder, what other cards should we play? Silence, in order to beat Consigned to Memory, was top of mind. And then you really want a Haywire Might for things like Deafening Silence or Leyline of the Void off of Urza Saga. Haywire Might does not answer Null Rod or Grafdigger's Cage. And you might think it does answer Cage. If you play it from your hand, if you grab it with an Urza Saga, guess what? That Haywire Might is getting exiled due to Grafdigger's Cage, so that doesn't work. And we continue to try Barrogoyf in this list. What we found was that after I recorded 19.5, the sideboard Barrogoyfs became a known quantity, and people just started leaving in all of their removal because it answered Hexing Squelcher and Barrogoyf. Okay, so that wasn't great. And what we found with 19.7 was that with Urza Saga, they had even more of a reason to leave in removal. But you stretch the removal a little bit thinner with the additional creatures. Ultimately, this list was okay, but it wasn't getting the job done like we wanted it to. And I'll be honest, I played this list in a number of leagues. I could not buy a win. Just something about it didn't work for me, and I wasn't exactly sure why. And then community member Haxerman started working on a green list, which admittedly I was pretty against, and I believe it's the next one I'm about to show you. No, this one was still white. Okay, so I'll get to the green list in a second. So we started talking about more Saga targets. And you'll notice here we have a sideboard Shadow Spear and a skateboard. And Shadow Spear, the idea was that you can build your own Baroglyph at home and not need 4 sideboard slots for the Baroglyph. And then I was like, okay, well, that makes a lot of sense to me. I like this. Admittedly, I was the one who came up with the idea. Everybody else wanted to play skateboard. And what we found with this list was that it worked initially. And then once the tempo decks realized that we were just trying to Urza Saga them out, they were holding all of their wastelands and consigned to memory for Urza Saga. And the equipment no longer got the job done. Additionally, they were terrible, terrible draws. We also had the idea of boarding up a land versus these tempo decks, so that way you could use your Urza Saga to activate to make more creatures more often. It also gave you a second surveil land against blue. This didn't work. And now we'll get back to the Haxerman idea, which was 19.9 of playing green. So here we have a list where we dropped the Shadow Spear and we went to green for Veil of Summer. I did not think this was actually going to work when I started playing it, because the way that it looks, or works, I should say, is that you're really good with Hexing Squelcher and Veil of Summer at beating blue, except for Consign to Memory. You have exactly Burning Wish into Thoughtseize in order to beat Consign to Memory. And I was like, our deck has a major hole in it. I don't think that this is going to actually be functional. But I'm willing to try it. I'm willing to see how it plays out. When I couldn't buy a win with those white lists, I was winning a lot with this build. And we still have the skateboard here, which I eventually dropped. And you'll see that when we go back to 20.0. And we have the sideboard Hexing Squelcher. So this list was really close, and I played this in a number of leagues, and I really liked it. But ultimately, the skateboard was pretty useless. Like, I boarded it in all the time, and it was just never very good. I think that's the best way of describing it. Like, you would draw it, and it would be bad. You never really get it off of Urza Saga, even though you might expect that you would. Because Giant's Boulder, if you're unfamiliar, and I've been talking all this time about a card that you have no idea what it does, is a 1-mana artifact. When it enters, you scry 2. You can pay a mana and filter into a mana of any color, or 7 mana, sacrifice it, and destroy target permanent. You might think that part is flavor text. I'll tell you in a little bit why it's not. So here, you can use that 7 mana ability, sacrifice like a Lion's Eye Diamond, clear a blocker, and then kill them with your Urza Saga construct. Okay. So that actually gets rid of the need for something like skateboard. And I really liked the 4th Hexing Squelcher out of the sideboard. It helped a lot with the show and tell matchups that are a problem for this deck. This list was close, but it wasn't perfect. But it did solve one thing about the white lists that I liked, which was here we have that old trick that we used to have in order to beat a Veil of Summer or the One Ring, which is you would put Song of Creation into play. You would draw your entire deck, or most of your deck, and then you would empty the Warrens to make a horde of Goblin tokens. You would sacrifice your Song of Creation to Beseech the Mirror. You can also Boomerang Basics it if you so choose. And then in their upkeep, you could silence them 3 times. You could even play a Hexing Squelcher to make sure it resolves. Okay, so that beats the One Ring and Veil of Summer. When you switch to green, you are priced into playing Approach of the Second Sun again. But it's not in our sideboard. So what's the game plan versus Veil of Summer and the One Ring? Well, you put Song of Creation into play, you draw most of your deck, and you play Giant's Boulder. When you're looping your deck with Echo of Aeons, because you can front half, which is hardcast the Echo of Aeons, the back half would be the flashback. You can actually loop Echo of Aeons, making mana with Lion's Eye Diamond, Lotus Petals, Mox Opals, and Dark Ritual. You can start using Giant's Boulder on all of your opponent's permanents one by one. You can also Burning Wish into Boomerang Basics to speed it up a little bit. And so you start bouncing all of their permanents and then destroying their lands with the Giant's Boulder until they have no board. Eventually, you can empty the Warrens, which I would recommend doing before you get a super high storm count, because if you wait until the end, you can actually crash Magic Online, and we don't want that to happen. So you've destroyed all their lands, and now before you pass the turn, you can actually set up a bunch of mana in play like Lion's Eye Diamond, Lotus Petal, Mox Opals, etc., and then leave a few Giant's Boulder in play so that even if your opponent has the nut draw off of their 7-card hand that you gave them off of Echo of Aeons, you could still Giant's Boulder them twice. So there's no real way for the opponent to win the game. And then you just attack them with Empty the Warrens. This might seem crazy, but I've done it. It's actually not that difficult to do. So I don't think we need Approach of the Second Sun anymore. Giant's Boulder ties the room together and opens up a sideboard slot while allowing you to play 4 copies of Urza Saga in your 12-land, 4-color deck. It's so good. And one big thing about this is you can go turn 1 Urza Saga into the Giant's Boulder. With Brainstorm, you often wanted to go turn 1 pass, end step I'll fetch a Surveil land, and then we'll untap, we'll play another fetch land and Brainstorm. This meant that you weren't doing anything until turn 3. Turn 1 Giant's Boulder means that you're ready to go on turn 2. So there's no waiting an extra turn anymore. So we're a little bit faster, we're more consistent, and then that's a big thing for me. You might remember this name from about a year ago. There's a Magic Online user named Ella1 who on Discord goes by Quentin Coldman, and Quentin said this about Black Saga Storm with Entomb. The most important thing about Legacy Storm is how often you find Lion's Eye Diamond, and that is why Urza Saga is good. So I experimented a lot last summer with Urza Saga, Lion's Eye Diamond, Gamble decks, but ultimately I ran into the issues that I've already described in this video, which is Urza Saga in your 4-color deck with Echo of Aeons just doesn't work. But now it does because we could play 4 colors and 12 lands. So now our deck is the best it's ever been at finding Lion's Eye Diamond between Urza Saga, Gamble, and naturally drawing it. And if you wanted to, you could even beseech the mirror for it. I've done it before. So our deck is very, very good at finding the broken card. And on top of that, Urza Saga gives you a beatdown pivot plan, which is just instrumental. How we arrived at 20-0 was that I wanted 4 Hexing Squelcher in the main deck, and I wanted to not play Skateboard anymore. And this is where we got stuck for a little bit. I asked the Stormtrooper section of the Discord, well, what can we play? And people started talking about things like Massacre and Grapeshot. I was like, none of those are actually going to increase our win rate. And we were doing okay versus Tempo, specifically the Dimir deck, but I wanted to do better. And I said, well, what about Carpet of Flowers? Carpet of Flowers is a bargainable for Beseech the Mirror. You can also use the mana to activate Urza Saga. And in my opinion, the best thing about Carpet of Flowers, it actually means that you can activate Giant's Boulder without discarding your hand to Lion's Eye Diamond. That's pretty good. Because, you know, Carpet of Flowers versus those slow blue decks might make 3 or 4 mana. And then Giant's Boulder becomes a lot more realistic. It also gives you 6 mana for the Runehorn Hellkite ability from the graveyard. Or you could actually hardcast Echo of Aeons. So I like that quite a bit. And now we're going to switch from looking at Magic Online to the Data Project. So this is only available to you as a Stormtrooper member, so the $30 member of the Discord, but I'm going to give you a look under the hood at what I've been doing. So I've been coding this on nights and weekends, trying to switch from the giant slow Excel sheet that we were using, or Google sheet that we were using, to an actual database. And here we'll see, you can look at the deck version. So the collective here has a 56 win rate with 20.0, but it also has the largest sample size. I think that this is a little bit of a false thing. You might look at this and go, oh, it's the worst version. I don't think that's true at all. I think our sample increased and the average balanced out a little bit. But on top of that, we've had some new members join recently. So it's not just me. This is 15-ish people, if you look in here, all playing the Epic Storm. And we've had some people join that may not be as experienced as others, and that's okay, because this is giving us a better idea of the average pilot win rate. So we'll see here that it's about 56% with 172 matches. Okay. I mean, not the best. And another cool thing about this is that you can actually exclude or include versions. So let's remove the whitelist here. Okay. So if we remove the whitelist, our win rate goes up to 60% overall. And this number does not change because it wasn't white to begin with. Okay. And you could also look at everyone, or you could look at a specific person. So if we look at just me, my win rate goes up to 72-ish% for the non-white builds. Oh, and if I exclude, sorry, I still have the Grixis League in there. If we exclude the Grixis League, I'm 72.5%. So if you want to round up, 73% overall with the green list. I've been running very, very well with this list. I like it quite a bit. I've even played some unofficial versions here that you could see with just like trying out different green lists, because not every list is tracked. We sometimes just play 0-0 lists for the sake of trying an idea. I've been doing very well with green, and you might think consigned to memory is an issue. It has not been an issue. I think that we just overload it. That's really the game plan. So I will clear these results now, and we'll continue to look. I'm already at 15 minutes. I'm going so overboard on this deck tech, but hopefully you like this sort of stuff. And if not, you can always skip ahead. If we skip here, we have our overall stats, where we've played 515 matches since the card ban as a collective. I've personally played like 120 something, but I don't really want to filter it again. I kind of just want to show you. Maybe I'll do it again in a minute. And then here's our collective metagame stats. So you'll see our group here versus Dimir Tempo is 30-19 for a 61.2 win percentage. I am mentioning this specifically because it's the most popular deck in the format, but also because I'm a member of the Eternal Glory podcast, and recently I shared the most recent episode of the Eternal Glory podcast to Reddit, and people there, for lack of a better term, were clowning on me, trying to dunk on me for thinking that Bilbo Thief in the Night is a problem for Legacy, saying things like, you just don't like the card because you lose to it. Fun fact, that's not true. But that's how people see things. They can't recognize that I can be unbiased about the health of Legacy. Not everything is about my pet deck or my win rate, because our win rate is actually pretty good. And then we have decks like Energy, even Azorius Tempo, the Stifle Wrath of the Skies combo deck, or control deck, tempo deck, whatever you like to call it. We're 50%. That's not bad. The bad matchups are the Allurintel deck and then Omnitel, in my opinion. It's really weird that we're seeing lands here, but I'm going to be honest with you. I think some of this is skill issue. We have a few pilots that just don't know how to play against non-blue. They keep these slow controlling hands that just don't work versus a deck that's trying to wasteland you out or Sphere of Resistance. But that's one of the things about group data is you have those different skill levels. But I think this one is a little bit false here. I wouldn't bet money that we have a bad matchup versus lands. Like, I'd bet the opposite. But sometimes that's just how it breaks. We're very good against the bean decks. I mean, it's possible to lose to them, but we're pretty good against them. 84%, that's even higher than Energy. So the Epic Storm is very well positioned at the moment. And you can keep on scrolling down. You'll see the initiative. The colorless mud deck, we're really, really bad against. It's a turn 1 Trinisphere deck that plays Mindbreak Trap in the sideboard. We're not going to beat that. Sometimes you just have to accept those losses and move on. But overall, I'm pretty happy with how this is all going. And then if we wanted to, I can filter to my own personal stats. And you'll see that I'm 8-5 versus Dimir Tempo. Some of these are with non-green builds. And, you know, I didn't win as much. Ever since moving to Carpet of Flowers, I've won even more. So, I mean, my sample isn't as big as the collective sample, so it's tougher to get real numbers. But I've been playing a lot. Like I mentioned, 120 plus matches in. My win rate is very good. I'm really loving these green lists. And I think that Giants Boulder is a subtle thing, but a very powerful one. Going back to the deck list here, it ties the room together a lot. So you might be thinking, Brainstorm makes your deck consistent. Giants Boulder, it's just a scry 2. It's essentially a glorified Preordain. Yeah, maybe, but it means that you can just find the best card in your deck with Urza Saga. You can go search out that Lion's Eye Diamond. So you gain a lot of consistency between Urza Saga and Giants Boulder. In fact, I think more consistency than you would with Brainstorm. And it's crazy to think that we went from the Ponder Brainstorm deck to not playing those. That is how Magic has moved over the last decade. First, we had the London Mulligan around 2020, and then I think cards have become more powerful and there's less time for setting up. We saw Preordain be pinched out years ago and then Ponder due to Surveil lands, and I think we're finally seeing Brainstorm leave. At least Storm combo. You could still play those cards in other decks. I don't think the Omnitel decks actually play Preordain anymore, but they're still Ponder Brainstorm decks. So there's something for you if you want to play a combo deck with those cards, but I don't think they're actually good in Storm combo anymore. That's my point. I've been ranting and rambling now for almost 20 minutes, so we're going to end this and go play some Magic, but hopefully you liked that in-depth deck tech and a real look at what's been going on underneath the hood. If you want to be a part of that sort of thing, join the Stormtrooper section. We're constantly analyzing data, working on the deck list, and so much more. I know that it might seem expensive at $30, but our community's the best. And like I mentioned, we have nightly Discord streams with 15 plus people in there. It's been a privilege to be a part of that the last month or so when we've been working on the Fantastic car leading into this. But I'm going to hop on in and play some Magic now. Thank you for watching, and let's go crush some face. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. You can also show your support by becoming a member of this channel. You get sweet perks such as badges, emotes, early access to videos, exclusive members-only content, and access to our members Discord section. As you increase the tiers, there are other rewards such as shop discounts, sideboard guides, and even free donation decks. Click the join button down below to find out more. We also have other ways you can support us, like theepicstorm.com/shop or submitting a donation deck via theepicstorm.com/donation decks. That's enough for now. Let's play some Magic. Welcome to match number 1. We're on the draw, and I will keep. This hand is a potential turn 1 win. Our opponent's history, according to the Data Project and MTG Goldfish, has them switching back and forth between mono black, aggro or mid-range, whatever you would like to call it, and Mystic Forge combo. Here they have a turn 1 Thoughtseize. It's interesting. So the pick is either Lion's Eye Diamond or Chrome Mox. They could also try to take the Burning Wish, but I would try to cut off Metalcraft here if I were them. And I think if I were playing, I'd probably take the Chrome Mox. I know the Lion's Eye Diamond here is juicy, but the Chrome Mox allows me to play Giant's Boulder into the Mox Opals, where Lion's Eye Diamond doesn't. They take the Burning Wish. Okay, I'm fine with that. I have more action in the deck. I get to cast the Giant's Boulder and the Diamond here. So we'll play Chrome Mox, imprint the Hexing Squelcher. We'll play the Giant's Boulder. And we'll bottom both of these, play Lion's Eye Diamond, play Mox Opal, and I think I'm going to play the other Boulder. Dig. And there we go. Pass the turn. They play Verdant Catacombs into Moonshadow, and now they fetch for a Bayou and an Elvish Reclaimer. We'll float a black, play Mox Opal, and now we'll tap for a red, gamble. We'll grab Echo of Aeons, make 3 blue, spin, baby. Spin that wheel. Storm is 3. And this is a win. So we'll play Urza Saga, Dark Ritual. We'll tap the Saga for a mana, filter it into a red with the Giant's Boulder. Play Lion's Eye Diamond. We'll tap Mox Opal for another red. We'll play Mox Opal. Storm is 7. I'm sorry, Storm is 6. Burning Wish is 7. Tendrils is 8. I don't even have to sacrifice a diamond here. We'll say yes. Just double checking my math. And select the Tendrils of Agony. And we'll cast it. Target you. Easy does it. So we saw there that Giant's Boulder allowed us to just play our spells. Like, it was really easy. Because you don't have to sit there with the Brainstorm and go, oh, I hope I hit a fetch land, or am I supposed to wait to make sure that I hit my fetch? You don't have to do any of that. Switching this over to card view. We don't need Runehorn Hellkite here. We don't need the Hexing Squelchers. Probably want to leave in the Veil of Summers against the black deck. We'll bring in our copies of Besage Who Endures, the Haywire Might, Boomerang Basics, and that brings us to 61. I probably want the Empty the Warrens as well. We're at 62. We saw green, so I think that they could have like Force of Vigor and or Endurance. So I want the Empty the Warrens, I think. I could also just board out Veil of Summer on the draw, which might be the move. Because on the draw, you're not going to stop a discard spell anyway. So why don't we try that? And then if I lose game 2, I'll bring it back in on the play. Good hand. I mean, I don't love having the Gaia's Will, but the rest of it's good. We'll keep. They fetch with a Verdant Catacombs for a Bayou. Turn 1 Moonshadow. You draw Boomerang Basics. I'll play Chrome Mox. I think I might just spin here. You could play out the Raucous Theater, but then you don't have an untapped land for your new hand. I'll select Echo of Aeons, and we'll make 3 blue. Storm 4 Echo. Not the best. I think we're going to just play the Boulder and pass the turn. Scry 2. Neither of these really help me. Technically, if I keep Dark Ritual, it gets me closer to Burning Wish into Beseech the Mirror. So I guess if they don't discard spell me here, Dark Ritual is good. I will pass. And they have Force of Vigor. Okay. And now they play Thoughtseize. I have to imagine this takes Burning Wish. It does. They fetch for an Underground Mortuary. And now they can attack for 3. We're drawing a Dark Ritual that does not help me here. I'll just play the Besage Who Endures and pass. They play Basic Swamp and another Moonshadow. 3 cards still in their hand. My best draw by far is a Beseech the Mirror at the moment. Mox Opal, that doesn't do it, will pass. And Step Orcish Bowmasters, this will make the Echo not very good. They're attacking for 6 here, that would put me down to 7. And now the fetch will pump up the Moonshadows. They grab a Dryad Arbor. So that confirms that they're actually Hogak. And now I'll get hit. I'll take, I believe, 8. Weight of the Reliquary. Beseech the Mirror off the top. Let's see it. No such luck. Alright, so we will lose this one and head off to game number 3. Bring in Veil of Summer. This might be crazy. I think I'm going to get rid of the Besejus. I don't want to board out Giant's Boulder. It ties the room together so nicely with my Mox Opals. So this is what I'm going to choose to do here. On the play. This is pretty darn good. Keep. We'll play Verdant Catacombs and pass. They play their own Verdant Catacombs. They search out Bayou and an Elvish Reclaimer. Alright, I guess I will Surveil here. We're going to go no matter what on my turn. So if they're not going to... That's actually pretty good. We'll keep that. If they're not going to, like, cast a black spell, I should advance my own game plan with the Raucous Theater. We'll play Dark Ritual, Giant's Boulder, Scry. Yes, we keep... We're going to shuffle anyway. Mox Opal, Lion's Eye Diamond. And now I can Burning Wish. We'll sacrifice for black. Yes. We'll grab Beseech the Mirror. Cast it, sacrificing the Mox Opal. Grab Gaia's Will. Cast it. Play Lion's Eye Diamond, Mox Opal, and the opponent concedes the match. Okay, well, we've won match number 1. We got to show off Giant's Boulder a little bit, which is great. Here in Enabled Metalcraft, unlike Brainstorm, we didn't have to have bad mana because we're able to just always fetch for whatever we need. We don't have to fetch for blue in order to support Brainstorm. Hopefully you'll see more results like this, being wins and Giant's Boulder being good in the remaining matches.
Building a new deck usually means getting hit with a dozen different shipping fees from a dozen different sellers. It adds up fast, and honestly, it's the worst part of buying cards. That's why I switched to Card Trader Zero. You shop their global marketplace, but instead of having every seller ship to you, they ship to Card Trader's hub first. Card Trader then packs everything into a single shipment for you, and it saves a small fortune on shipping fees. This package from Card Trader just arrived. These are 4 Dark Rituals that came from 4 different sellers, but they all arrived in one envelope, and every card was quality checked by the Card Trader team before it hit my door. Check out the link in the description to try Card Trader Zero's optimizer for yourself. Stop paying for multiple shipments and get just one.
Welcome to the second match. We're on the draw. I will keep. We have a hand that's pretty good in almost any matchup, but our opponent tends to play a lot of energy variants. So we're going to keep this. We're going to hope that our gamble does not fail us, that we're able to go Lotus Petal into Dark Ritual and spin the Echo of Aeons. They're on 5 cards to begin. Chrome Mox, so not Boros Energy. What is that? Muxus, they're goblins. Okay. Chalice of the Void for 1. I have my own goblin, but I do need another land here. Chalice of the Void for 0. What a 5-card hand. So I need to draw a land here. We drew a card I want, but I do need another land. So I have to pass. A land unlocks this entire game for us. We'll discard Runehorn Hellkite. Okay, we're just playing Draw Go. Continuing to play Draw Go. Oh, we did it. We'll play Hexing Squelcher, Lotus Petal, my spells can't be countered, Lion's Eye Diamond, and I could spin right now, but I think I'm going to pass, because if I pass, I have a deterministic win on my next turn. And the opponent scoops them up! Let's go, that's what you get for your double chalice draw. Alright, we don't need the Runehorn Hellkite. I'm interested in Boomerang Basics, the Haywire Might, Beseiju Who Endures. We do not need Veil of Summer. And then Hexing Squelcher, you can keep 1 if you want as a gamble target. You could also keep 2 and board out a Giant's Boulder, which might be better. Let's try this. Well, this is a hand that loses the Chalice of the Void. That said, if they don't Chalice of the Void you, this is an easy win. So I'm going to keep it. They kept 7, probably not a good sign for me. City of Traders. Thorn of Amethyst. What a hater. I have to go to cleanup. They play a Chrome Mox, imprints a Goblin Matron. Chalice of the Void for 0. We've lost this one. We can go to the next game. Alright. On the play, I think I want the Empty the Warrens. Get rid of the Hexing Squelcher. I wonder even if on the play if you want the 4th Boomerang Basics, just so you can be fast. It means that you don't have an out via Burning Wish, which is probably a bad idea. Alright, we'll leave 1 Hexing Squelcher and we'll try this. I like that second hand again. Let's do that. On the play. It's too slow. Mulligan. So this one has Boomerang Basics. I just don't know if it's good enough. You can go turn 1 Burning Wish into Burning Wish into Beseech the Mirror. And then turn 2 you have mana to cast Beseech the Mirror. But then it does nothing. I think you're supposed to send this back. Okay, let's hope they don't have a card that begins the game in play. 5 cards. Okay, so we're able to spin on turn 1. Urza Saga, Lion's Eye Diamond. Make 3 blue. We'll tap the Saga and cast Echo of Aeons. Storm is 2. They have Simian Spirit Guide. No! Wow. Yeah, you got me. No way. What a hateful deck. How's there room for Muxus in this deck? Or any goblins to reveal off of Muxus? Do we need to draw another Echo of Aeons? Which I was not... I bottomed an Echo, where if I had kept a second Echo, it would have been good here. So maybe this one's on me. They have no second land. We'll fetch. We want to find a Gamble or an Echo here. That also does it. So we'll tap for a mana. We'll grab a Lion's Eye Diamond. Burning Wish. Yes. We'll grab the Echo. If they have another one, we lose. Echo of Aeons, Storm 2. That one resolves. However, I don't have a win. So we'll play Urza Saga, Lion's Eye Diamond, Mox Opal, and then we'll have to pass. They have Basic Mountain into Thorn. I would really like a land here. Land. Gamble. We have to pass the turn. So I'm trying to think here. If I tap Saga for colorless, I go grab another artifact, like let's say a Chrome Mox. I could then Boomerang Basics the Thorn, Dark Ritual into Burning Wish, Beseech the Mirror. If they have a Pyroblast, though, I'm in trouble. If I get a Lion's Eye Diamond, I could peer into the Abyss, but I think I'm lacking a colored mana somewhere. So if I draw a mana, it'd have to be a land, but if I drew a land, I could peer into the Abyss. Chrome Mox, that's going to be countered, but maybe that's okay. If I grab Haywire Might, let's talk about this. What happens if I grab Haywire Might here? I can use the Opal to kill the Thorn, but then I can't answer the Chalice. But here's the thing, if I get Haywire Might, which might be okay, let's just think this through. They can't have Simian Spirit Guide Pyroblast, so I wouldn't lose to that. But I think Haywire Might's actually the play here. Maybe I messed this up, because now I don't have another artifact for Metalcraft. What if I just gamble for another Saga? Let's go grab Urza Saga. We discard the Urza Saga naturally. Okay, we'll gamble again. Oh, I can't. Pass the turn. Our opponent tanked for a while and then just passed. We draw Lion's Eye Diamond. I will attack with my Haywire Might. And I will attempt another gamble. Urza Saga. Play the Urza Saga, and that will pass. Our opponent plays a Broadside Bombardiers using a Simian Spirit Guide. That might be why they tanked so long last turn. I wonder if they're going to fling the Chalice at the Haywire Might here. And they do. Okay. So I think we have a window of opportunity here to win the game. Saga goes to Chapter 2. We could play the Chrome Mox. Imprint the Dark Ritual. I think I'm supposed to just make a construct here. Like, I don't need to try to combo win. Our opponent is sort of stuck. They drew Ancient Tomb. Good draw for them. Goblin Matron. They reveal another copy of Broadside Bombardiers. They play Chrome Mox. Okay. Imprints Dropkick Bomber from, I can't remember the name, Foundations. The Broadside Bombardiers has Menace, so I cannot block it with one creature, so I will not make a construct token here. End step, we'll make a construct. I believe that they can still fling here if they so choose. They could sacrifice the Matron, and they do. Alright, so this is our spot to try to win. We'll float here. Grab another Lion's Eye Diamond. We'll play the Boomerang Basics on the Thorn of Amethyst. Play Lion's Eye Diamond. Mox Opal. And now we will hold priority and cast Burning Wish. We're going to make a lot of mana here. 9 black. Storm is 4. Yes. Select Peer into the Abyss. Target myself. And it resolves. Think we got it. Lotus Petal. Lotus Petal. Mox Opal. And let's just cast Tendrils of Agony. We have enough here. We have enough for another copy as well. They Pyroblast 1. Our opponent says GG's. Honestly, those were great games, so I agree. Wow. Alright, so we are now 2-0 over this Goblin Prison deck. Looking to make playing your favorite combo deck much easier? Look no further than the Epic Storm Mini Combo Pack, which is available at theepicstorm.com/shop for $15.99. This token combo pack comes with 84 double-sided tokens featuring classic Storm and Mana tokens with new inclusions such as our modern Ruby Storm package, but that's not all. Our token pack covers a variety of formats from Pauper to CDH with new tokens. Stop on by theepicstorm.com/shop and make an easy decision to elevate your combo game. Match number 3, we're on the play. Our opponent has recent results with Izzet Delver and Boros Energy. I'm not sure which one they're playing, but this hand is fine against both. We will keep. So what I like about this is that we can actually Urza Saga game in either match. We'll play Giant's Boulder, scry 2, Beseech the Mirror, and a land. I think we keep both of these. Play the Lotus Petal, and I think I'm even going to play out Lion's Eye Diamond here in case our opponent has switched to Dimir Tempo, and then we'll pass. It could also be Boros Energy. Who knows? I was wrong on all accounts. Okay. So I wonder if we're supposed to be Saga gaming here. If I can just imprint the Hexing Squelcher. I know it's crazy, but I think that's the move. Pass the turn. Because I have to fetch away the Beseech the Mirror in order to make an Urza Saga construct. And while they're tapped out, I'm going to fetch. We'll grab... I don't think it really matters. We'll grab another Badlands. And we'll just make the construct now in case of Stifle. We have a little 5/5. They play another Tundra. We'll draw for turn. Another Saga, beautiful. We'll make another Urza Saga construct. Search. We'll grab a Lion's Eye Diamond. And this might seem odd to you, but if our opponent plays an end-step Felia, I can actually Giant's Boulder the Felia. We'll play Chrome Mox, and now we'll attack for 8. Swing. And they're going to take 8. We'll pass the turn. Here it is. And Giant's Boulder. I didn't want to do this, but you made me. Goodbye, dog. Giant's Boulder 7-mana mode activated. They have a Flooded Strand, and a Tamiyo Inquisitive Student. Song of Creation. I don't think there's a chance that I'm activating that. Oh, we're seeing a Stifle here. Okay. We will swing. Get in there. They block. Do you have a Brainstorm? No Brainstorm. They're just going to take it down to 7. We will pass. They fetch for a Meticulous Archive. They kept a card on top, which worries me here. They play land number 4. Murktide Regent, the big boy. However, our Saga is going to pump up the remaining 2 constructs. So if we're just thinking about this logically, I'm going to get the Saga trigger. They'll make our construct 6/6s, but if they have Swords to Plowshares, the Murktide trades with my existing construct, the Swords answers the other, and now I'm stuck in a hard place. Burning Wish. We'll float a colorless here. Another Stifle. They have 2 cards. Cast Burning Wish? Yes. Boomerang Basics. Bounce the Murktide Regent? Nice. We got there. So our opponent is boarding in Wrath of the Skies. It's unlikely that the Saga beatdown plan works like that again. I do really like Carpet of Flowers in the matchup. Viseju Endures most likely doesn't have any targets, but just having lands is good. We're going to board out 2 copies of Mox Opal because we're bringing in 4 permanent mana sources. And then we'll shed a Giant's Boulder and then 1 copy of... It's either a Gamble or a Hellkite. We're facing a deck with Stifles. But my gut tells me Runehorn Hellkite. Let's try this. What are the odds your Urza Saga doesn't get hit by Consign to Memory or Wasteland? I want to keep this, I just don't think you're supposed to. We'll mulligan. This is better. We'll keep bottom the Tendrils of Agony. Echo of Aeons is by far our best draw here. They play Flooded Strand into Tamiyo Inquisitive Student. Another Squelcher. I think I'm going to imprint the Veil of Summer and just play the Hexing Squelchers. We'll fetch, grab our Badlands, play Hexing Squelcher. And you don't want to play out the zeros because you don't want them to be destroyed by Wrath of the Skies. And we'll pass. Our best draws just became Gamble and Echo of Aeons. They fetch with Flooded Strand. They ponder. Did not shuffle. And now a Hydroblast. That's annoying. They go to 16. And now they attack and investigate, which means create a clue. We drew the Gamble. Nice. We'll play Hexing Squelcher, Lion's Eye Diamond, the Mox Opal, and now we're going to Echo of Aeons with a land drop available. Our opponent is tapped out, so they do not have access to Consign to Memory or Stifle. So this is a good window of opportunity for us. Flashback Echo Vaons. We did not draw into the win. We'll play Underground Sea, play the Giant's Boulder. So if our opponent doesn't do anything meaningful, we're okay for next turn, but I kind of doubt that's going to be the case. I don't need either of these. Those can both go on the bottom. We will pass the turn. They begin by using the plus ability of Tamiyo Seasoned Scholar, and now a Brainstorm. They play Flooded Strand, and now they're fetching. Another Ponder. They're really digging for an answer here. They did not shuffle. Redraw a Gamble. Doesn't really help me all that much. We'll begin by attacking the Tamiyo. Swing. And then I will Gamble. And I'm trying to decide what Gamble's for here. Carpet of Flowers is tempting, but it gets hit by Consign to Memory and Stifle, and Wrath of the Skies if they found it. I think it's Lion's Eye Diamond. We discard Beseech the Mirror. Okay, we'll play our land. We'll filter for a red. We'll play another copy of Hexing Squelcher. And I could spin here. Protected. So even if they found Hydroblast or Swords to Plowshares, we could still move. But I have a deterministic win next turn. I think I want to spin, because I know that they're not going to be able to stop me in the moment. We'll grab Echo of Aeons, and we'll flash back, keeping the green open, because blue honestly doesn't do me any good here. This is a Peer into the Abyss, as long as they don't stifle the Chrome Mox trigger. Maybe I should have waited on the Lotus. Well, I guess if they stifle that, then they're dead. Alright, so we're casting our spells, hold control, we'll play Burning Wish, and now we'll add black, Burning Wish, and the opponent concedes the match. We just beat Azorius Tempo. This deck is looking pretty darn good, I have to say, and we are now 3-0. Moxfield.com is the easiest way to build a Magic deck online. They support over 30 formats, including Legacy and many other Eternal formats. There are so many options to view decks the way that you want, from text view to individual cards, mana value, and even card price. There's also light mode and dark mode. My personal favorite feature is card tags. This way you can sort cards by function. Moxfield supports collection tracking, scryfall search, decklist feedback, and so much more. Follow me on Moxfield.com so you can stay updated on all of my decks. Welcome back for the fourth match. We're on the play versus someone whose results are all Reanimator. So this is Rakdos Reanimator or Mono Black, not Dimir, so we want to be explosive. Here we have a hand that technically is a hand, I guess. You have Veil of Summer for a discard spell. You're one artifact away from Giant's Boulder turning on Mox Opal. You have Gamble, but the problem is you have a Tendrils of Agony that does nothing. Hexing Squelcher is useless. I think you're better off just taking a mulligan here. So you could bottom the Tendrils of Agony and then imprint the Runehorn Hellkite. You could set up a turn 2 Echo off Gamble, but you also have to, it's just not worth it, because then you have to draw a mana. You'd have to draw a mana in order for this hand to function, and you're going to shuffle the deck after the Giant's Boulder. I'll go to 5. This one technically has Gamble plus Echo, but you have to win a 66% Gamble. We'll bottom Hexing Squelcher and Veil of Summer. I must have misclicked. Oh, there's 2 of them. Whoops, that's what I did wrong. Okay. So we have to... Oh no, it's a 75%er. That's not terrible. Here goes nothing. Lotus Petal. Make a red. And now let's collectively cross our fingers. Lion's Eye Diamond. We win the flip. And now we'll draw a random 7. So we're essentially starting the game. By the way, that temporary zone that you just saw only shows if our opponent is playing Shallow Grave. So you know that they're on Shallow Grave Reanimator. And now we're starting the game with a random 7, but Storm 4. And not a very good hand. I think we're supposed to play Urza Saga here, Lotus Petal, and just pass the turn. We're really hoping that their 7-card hand is bad. I guess something I could have done is gone Burning Wish for Echo, in case they somehow discard both cards from my hand this turn. Underground Sea, Lotus Petal, Cabal Therapy targeting themselves. And they hit a Raph and Mikey. I'm in trouble. I might not get a turn 3. They hit the 1 of Raph and Mikey, so this is going to put another creature into play. And then they could also use the Cabal Therapy to target me. It's an Archon of Cruelty. We'll discard an Urza Saga. And they still have a Cabal Therapy in the graveyard, but they didn't use it. Lion's Eye Diamond is our best draw. Let's see it. What about a land instead? So we have to get extremely lucky here, but there is a world in which we win this. So we're going to Burning Wish for Echo of Aeons, and then gamble for Lion's Eye Diamond, and then we need a damn near perfect hand in order to win. We'll select Lion's Eye Diamond, we lose that one, and we lose game number 1. I mean, their random 7 was much better than ours. We do not need Hexing Squelcher. We'll bring in Boomerang Basics, get rid of the Runehorn Hellkite, and then 2 copies of Besage Who Endures. It stops Animate Dead, but also if they have Leyline of the Void, it's pretty valuable, and we'll try this. Game 2 on the play. Think we keep... I mean, it's not a turn 1, but it's a good hand. And if they mulligan to, like, Leyline of the Void, it's a hand that... I mean, most lists don't play Leyline, but it's a hand that can function. They're going down to 4 cards. I'd like to note that even if we win this, we're on the draw for Game 3, which does not bode well for us. They kept 4. We'll play Urza Saga, and then Giant's Boulder. Try 2. We do not want either of these. We'll bottom both. Play Mox Opal, play Lotus Petal, and then we'll pass. I could try to like gamble here, but I don't think that even makes sense. If they play a turn 1 discard spell, like they probably take the Burning Wish, and then I can gamble for Echo of Aeons. They have Verdant Catacombs and a Lotus Petal. 3 cards remain. They search out Badlands and Thoughtseize. And if they do take the gamble, it means that I can get Lion's Eye Diamond off of Urza Saga next turn, and then win with Beseech the Mirror off of Burning Wish. They have 2 cards in their hand. Part of me also just doesn't want to give them a new hand here. Like, I wonder how crazy it is to just, like, make an Urza Saga construct on their end step. I could also just put Echo to the graveyard right now and make a construct off of the Petal if I want. Yeah, it's probably just more responsible here to gamble. Their last list has 1 Pyroblast in it. We'll grab Echo of Aeons, and I think I'm going to just pass the turn. They play Undercity Sewers. End step, we will fetch. I go to 19. Grab Badlands. And I will make a construct. Maybe it's foolish, but I'm going to do it. It gives me a backup plan in case they have the Pyroblast. Burning Wish. That should be deterministic lethal here. We'll just float a colorless. Grab another Lion's Eye Diamond. Tap the Mox Opal for a red. Hold priority. We'll cast Burning Wish. We could just peer into the Abyss here. It doesn't even play into like a Surgical Extraction that they could have. Yes. Grab Peer into the Abyss. Target myself. Although if they had Surgical Extraction, they probably would have cast it on the Echo. Alright, and we win game number 2. Game 3 on the draw. I don't think we have reason to change anything, so we're going to resubmit and hope that our opponent just doesn't kill me, because there's not a lot I can do here. This is actually surprisingly okay, as long as you don't get goldfished, because it's good against discard. You just play Saga on turn 1, and then you'll have a diamond on turn 3. I know it seems crazy, I'm keeping. If they just like turn 1 Gristlebrand plus another creature, like you've earned it, you killed me. But this seems fine. Undercity Sewers. Let's unmask to the graveyard. They have 5 cards in their hand. Let's see something good. Diamond. Okay, so if our Giant's Boulder hits a payoff spell, we have a win. Because the Boomerang Basics can draw a card. It did not hit a payoff spell though. So I'm going to bottom both, and then we'll play Lion's Eye Diamond, Lotus Petal, Mox Opal, and then I think we're going to bounce the Boulder and then dig a little deeper. A gamble or an Echo would be insane here. They're thinking a long time about this Boomerang Basics. Beseiju Who Endures does not really help me here. I think I'll play the other Opal. I want to get this Boulder into play. We'll play the Giant's Boulder. No action. We dug 5 cards deep. Pass the turn. I have to imagine they're putting a large creature into play here. Not a good sign. Stronghold Gambit. We'll reveal a Chrome Mox. Atraxa. I mean, that one doesn't immediately kill me. They have Thoughtseize, Gristlebrand, Reanimate, Faithless Looting, another Stronghold Gambit, Dark Ritual. So I'm sure there's some way they can put Gristlebrand onto the battlefield here, whether it's with Stronghold Gambit or Thoughtseize themselves plus, you know, another card. They do have access to a Dark Ritual here. They cast Thoughtseize. This will take my Chrome Mox. They have 1 black floating and they pass. So window of opportunity time. If I hit Beseech the Mirror, Burning Wish, Gamble, Echo of Aeons, we're in business. What is it? Veil of Summer is not good. We'll play the Beseiju Who Endures. Pass the turn, we have to hope that I'm not dead. They play Polluted Delta. They attack for 7. This will put me down to 13. They don't cast anything. End step will make a construct. We have a 5/5. Echo, let's go. Alright, we're going to go grab a Lion's Eye Diamond here. Cast Veil of Summer in case they have the one of Pyroblast. And now we'll make blue and black. Flashback Echo of Aeons. Floating 4 mana. This is our chance to do some damage here. They fetch in response. They Dark Ritual, that's fine. Just adds to my storm count. You trying to cast a spell? Mindbreak Trap. No way! I was not expecting Mindbreak Trap. I mean, you could have just... Oh no, they played 2, because my storm count was 2. I see. Okay. And I'm 1 mana short of Boulder on Atraxa. Wow. Okay. If Reanimator is going to play Mindbreak Trap, you know, sometimes they get it. And we are now 3-1. The Gold Sabertooth times the Epic Storm collection has arrived with 3 full-size tokens showcasing the beloved Dark Ritual, CDH Rogsai, and Legacy of the Epic Storm for just $5. On the backs of these tokens, there's a place for my signature or a custom message. In addition to these sweet tokens, a friendly reminder that all orders that ship from theepicstorm.com also come with a signed Storm token from yours truly. The final match. On the draw, we're facing someone who plays a lot of Cradle Control. Here we've opened up an unplayable hand. We'll send this one back. So their game plan is turn 1 creature into turn 2 green Sun Zenith for Collector Roof. If they don't do that, if they play a turn 1 Thoughtseize, this hand is actually good because it has double diamond. I'm going to keep in bottom the Squelcher and hope that they don't play the turn 1 creature to enable turn 2 Collector Roof. They play a Bayou and Thoughtseize. So my bet paid off here. Now they have to choose between Lion's Eye Diamond or Giant's Boulder. They take Dark Ritual. Interesting choice. Chrome Mox is the draw. Not a particularly good one. We'll play the Giant's Boulder. Beseech the Mirror that I can't cast. So the Dark Ritual take ends up paying off here. I think you're supposed to bottom the Beseech the Mirror, unfortunately. Lion's Eye Diamond. Lion's Eye Diamond. Play the Mox Opal. And we will pass. Oh, it's not... Well, I mean, it could be the... It's probably the Hogak deck. I'd probably play it the same way, though. Now they have an Elvish Reclaimer. Burning Wish. Nope. We'll play Lotus Petal and pass. Wasteland. Not the end of the world here. They attack for 3. Ouch. And if they're Hogak, they have Orcish Bowmasters in this spot. We'll play another diamond. Pass the turn. They use Elvish Reclaimer. This pumps up the Moonshadow. For a Hatchery. Okay, that's pretty spicy. Light of the Reliquary. Burning Catacombs. So this is going to be 8. I'm dead next turn, so this is my last turn to draw into something. They have a Dryad Arbor, and now they're going to play the Hogak. There it is. They attack for 6, so I'm still dead. I have to draw Burning Wish, Gamble, Echo of Aeons, or Runehorn Hellkite. Let's see it. That'll do, Pig. That'll do. We'll play Chrome Mox. No. Tap for mana. Make a red. Hold that control key. Burning Wish. Better lucky than good. Yes, and you might be saying just Beseech the Mirror here. You can Beseech the Mirror win. I'm going to peer into the Abyss. There's a chance that your opponent could have main deck, and I guess they have 1 card. But there's always a possibility, not in this situation, that your opponent has a main deck Endurance. I feel like peer into the Abyss is essentially deterministic. Like, it just can't really fizzle in this deck. So you might as well just do it in order to avoid losing to something crazy. But when they only have 1 card, it'd have to be like a main deck Fairy Macabre or something like that, which isn't really realistic. I don't think your decision matters all that much one way or another. Just keep on casting spells. We'll play a Burning Wish. Yes. Select Tendrils of Agony. Target you. Nice. On the draw versus Hogak again. Definitely want the Empty the Warrens. Goodbye to the Runehorn Hellkite. Get rid of Hexing Squelcher. And then on the draw, I do like getting rid of Veil of Summer. On the play, I'd like it in the deck, but on the draw, I feel like it's pretty much useless. Like, it stops Orcish Bowmasters, and then if for some reason you're in the mid-game and your opponent draws a second Thoughtseize. Game number 2 on the draw, we've opened up an absolutely terrible hand. We'll be sending that one back. This one seems okay. Probably get rid of the second Giant's Boulder. They have Leyline of the Void, Basic Swamp, Thoughtseize. They take my Beseech the Mirror. We have Urza Saga into Lion's Eye Diamond and Beseiju to blow up the Leyline of the Void, but it would require your Saga living all the way, which I feel like isn't super realistic. So I'm going to choose to just play my Verdant Catacombs and pass, and then we'll Surveil on the end step. This way I can make Construct tokens, theoretically. I feel like that's not a terrible call. They have Marsh Flats, they fetch, Bayou, Elvish Reclaimer, that can also grab a Wasteland. I'll grab the Raucous Theater. Get rid of the Scalding Tarn. I don't really want or need it here. Burning Wish. We'll play Saga, play Giant's Boulder, Surveil. I definitely don't want 2 more copies. Those will go on the bottom. And now we'll pass. 3 cards in hand. There's a pause here. It could have been a Force of Vigor, but they didn't do it if they had it. Wasteland from hand. That's devastating. And then they can use the Elvish Reclaimer to go grab another. If we drew Lion's Eye Diamond, I could go Dark Ritual, filter off of the Giant's Boulder, Beseiju the Leyline of the Void, and then Echo. So Lion's Eye Diamond is our best draw here. Mox Opal. I think I just have to pass. Excuse me. They use Elvish Reclaimer again. I would guess they're grabbing Wasteland, and they do. Another Elvish Reclaimer. Dryad Arbor. They swing. Ouch. My Raucous Theater becomes permanently exiled. Verdant Catacombs, we will pass. If they attack for 7, puts me to 9. I'm running out of time if I actually want to win this. But they're going to play more cautiously and only attack for 3. Tendrils of Agony, right on time. Couldn't think of a better draw. We will pass the turn. They use Elvish Reclaimer. Or another Wasteland. They drew the Bojuka Bog, not particularly good for them. They'll attack for 3. This puts me to 10. I think they would have easily have won this game if they just swung out. Song of Creation. Why? Why are you like this deck? We must pass the turn. They use the Elvish Reclaimer. Are they getting Wasteland number 4 here? Hatchery. Okay. They attack and I go to 7. Lotus Petal. What does that even do? Let's play Lotus Petal. Mox Opal. Is this a Force of Vigor? It is. They exile Once Upon a Time. I will Dark Ritual. I guess I can just float mana here. I think I have to Tendrils of Agony just to stay alive. And then what? I think I'm just going to go to the next... Like, this game is not winnable. We could just stop dragging our feet and go try to win a game that's actually achievable here. Do I even want the Thoughtseizes? That's another question. Or do I even want the Veil of Summers for Thoughtseize? That's another question. Because we saw Leyline of the Void. So Beseiju's probably better. I'm going to keep the deck how it is and just try to win game 3. I think the Veil of Summer thing is too cheeky. His hand is very all-in. Loses to Leyline of the Void. I'm going to keep. And they had it in their 7. That's unfortunate. We'll play Giant's Boulder. Get rid of both of these. Pass the turn. They have Basic Swamp. Into Thoughtseize. 2 games in a row. Turn 1 Thoughtseize and Leyline in their 7. Good draws. I mean, we could still win this. We'll play Raucous Theater, get rid of the Lotus Petal, play Giant's Boulder. A Dark Ritual would actually allow me to hardcast the Echo. And there it is. Pass the turn. Land number 2. And they have the Collector Roof. Oh, wow. Things are looking grim. We will pass the turn. It's still winnable. I could draw Beseech the Mirror and then just like make a bunch of goblins. White of the Reliquary. Misty Rainforest. They swing. Ouch. Another Dark Ritual. So, in theory, if I drew Beseech the Mirror, I could Guise Will loop. Or if I draw Boomerang Basics, I can hardcast the Echo. Burning Wish also is a win. So, I know things look really bad. This game is still very winnable. I guess I can't Guise Will loop with a Leyline in play. But this game is winnable is my point. Second Thoughtseize. They take a Dark Ritual. They attack for 4. Ouch. Come on, Beseech the Mirror. There's a Saga. It's not going to be good enough with the White of the Reliquary on the table. We'll pass. And now they have Disruptor Flute. Holy moly. They name Urza Saga. They grab a Hatchery. Moonshadow. They attack for 5. I go to 9. I might be dead on board if I pass. But I think we're supposed to fetch and then hope for the best because they can tap the Hatchery, sacrifice it to pump up the White of the Reliquary, grab a Wasteland themselves and attack with the Moonshadow. Chromox is not going to do it. Oh, we just needed anything. Like a Burning Wish could have done it. Beseech the Mirror. gamble, but I'm dead. They cast a Once Upon a Time, finds a Wasteland, another Moonshadow, the Wasteland. They destroy my Underground Sea, so that's 7. So they can attack and then activate the White of the Reliquary, and then that's lethal. Alright, so we finished this, unfortunately, 3-2 after our hot start. I don't think it was a real fault of the deck list, to be honest with you, and I'm going to continue to play the same deck list moving forward. 3-2s happen. It's not really that big of a deal. So we lost to a turn 1 combo deck that boarded into Mindbreak Trap, which, you know, they wanted it more than we did. Like, ultimately, that's what it came down to. And then match number 5, our opponent drew fairly well. I could have mulliganed my 7, but honestly, I'd probably keep it again. We had a Surveil land and digging 5 cards with the Surveil land 5 cards deep because the Giant's Boulder digs 4, and we had 2 of them. So even with them having a highly disruptible draw, we were still in it until the very end. It's just I never drew anything. So sometimes that's going to happen, and I don't think it's a fault of Giant's Boulder. I think it's just variance that happens within Magic the Gathering. So I appreciate you watching the video. Hopefully you liked the longer deck tech. And I'm sorry that I didn't, 4-1 or 5-0, but sometimes you lose, and that happens too. I think this deck list is incredible. As of right now, if I were going to Eternal Weekend, I'd be locking in this 75. The sideboard guide will be updated on September 1st, so if you're interested, you can visit theepicstorm.com/shop and purchase it there. Or if you become a Storm supporter here on YouTube, the sideboard guide is available that way as well. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and as always, keep storming. Thanks for checking out today's video. We are sponsored by KMC Sleeves. I use hard perfect fits on every card in my collection. Doesn't matter if it's a deck, a binder, or a box. And then KMC Hyper Phoenix on all of my decks. They're the best way to protect your cards. And if you're interested in getting your own, visit kmcsleeves.com and use code STORM10 at checkout for 10% off.